There's only one hack I know of to master the fretboard as fast as possible, and it's the CAGED system. So today I'm going to explain what it is, why it's OP, and the easiest steps that you can take to add this to your guitar playing toolbox. If you are new here, I'm a professional musician that's done over 1,000 paid shows, and I graduated from Berklee with a scholarship. This is a lesson from our free online music school to make practical music education available to everyone. So I'm going to assume that you know basic chord theory, like triads, chord structures, maybe a bit of numbers. If you don't know this stuff, I'll link our free theory course and you can start with that and it will make this video a lot easier for you. CAGED is a simple system to make triad navigation and fretboard knowledge really easy. All we're going to do is we're going to use the frameworks of 5 open chords and then use those to copy paste them everywhere on the fretboard. So all you need to know is the chord tone frameworks of your open C chord, open A chord, open G chord, open E chord, and then your open D chord. CAGED, caged, boom. And you're going to use your knowledge of where the root notes are to connect then to another target root note somewhere else on the fretboard, and then you play the best suited open chord for that spot. And so why you want to know this is it's basically a practical way to play triads everywhere on the fretboard without having to do, arpeggio exercises and do all that kind of stuff. It's going to allow you to know where the chord tones are in any key that you're playing in. It's going to allow you to know where chord tones are when you're improvising and what scale you're jamming in. And it's going to let you know where opportunities for voice leading are going to exist. And then later on down the track, when you start developing knowledge in more juicier chords, like 7 chords and 9 chords and 11th chords and things like that, more jazzier stuff, it's going to make it a lot easier to find those tensions really, really quickly. So basically, I'll just give you a quick example of what I mean by you using the root note to then find the position throughout the fretboard. So I have, for instance, we're just going to jump in on the open E chord shape. So I've got my open E chord here. Now I'm going to race through this really fast just to give you the example of what I'm talking about. And then I'm going to go into an explanation of the chord structures for each one of them. And then we're just going to go through the kind of steps that you can start taking to make this work for yourself very, very easy. So basically, I'm playing an E chord right now. Now, if I zoom through the chord tones of the E chord, this is my root, 5th, root, 3rd, 5th, root. Now, if I'm playing in a band or I'm doing anything with other people or maybe I'm just trying to be more creative and find better sounds, I'm like, well, how can I play an E chord throughout the fretboard? Traditionally, what I was taught from a lot of the guitar teachers and stuff like that, they're like, you need to learn every arpeggio and every triad shape. I mean, I'm not kidding. I had to do this at Berklee. This was part of our exams. You'd have to memorize every single triad shape. And then what would happen is I would spend so much time practicing these triads and then I completely forget them after the test. And so I don't know if you guys get the same thing when you're trying to just memorize something for the sake of memorizing it. It makes it really, really hard for it to stick. And then it needs to have a musical application for me for it to really stick in my brain and then allow me to use it and apply it when I'm gigging or when I'm performing and things like that. So where the CAGED system is awesome is I'm going to start with my E shape. So this is my E shape right now. You can see that I'm swapping my finger position. I'm not using my first finger for this. The reason why is for CAGED, for your approach to CAGED chords, you want to try and have your first finger available because your first finger is going to be the anchor for bar chords or movable chords. So say for instance, I have the E shape here. I slide it up, it becomes an F chord. Slide up, G chord, blah, blah, blah. So precursor to what's about to happen. So say for instance, I have an E chord. Root notes on the E string. Bam, killer. Now I'm like, okay, well, where's the next one going to be? And I'm like, all right, well, I need to find another root note for the E. That's another E chord. Now, what chord, open chord progression, open chord can I use there? Say, for instance, we use the open chord D shape. So this is what the D shape looks like. So if I slide that D shape up here, I've got another E. Now the next E right here, I can use my open C chord shape. And then I've got another E here, open E shape here. And then the only one that's missing is my root note on the 6th string again, which I can use the G shape here. It's a bit trickier on an acoustic guitar. Or I can use like this is for me, especially the G shape, is for using upper voicings up high on the fretboard. But that's just an example. I used all 5 open chord shapes to get one E. So I've got an E here, 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 and I got an E here, or up here. And all I'm doing is open E shape there, D shape here, and then we've got C shape here, and then we've got A shape here, and then I've got my G shape here. Which you can, as you can see, this one's the trickiest one, so I don't recommend like jumping right into the G one, but it's like bam right there. So I kind of like have to make choices because I don't have the biggest hand in the world. So I do it like that, or I just, anyway, it is what it is. So basically you can see how quite easily I just needed to know where my chord tone was, and then that allowed me to navigate. My root note was, and then I could build the chord tones around it using basically just an open chord that we all know. You know, these 5 chords are just like so easy for a majority of beginners. So why wouldn't we just make our life as simple as possible by just memorizing where root notes are? So in case we're just going to do recap, so I just used root note, bam, there, and then I got my root note E is over here. So that's where I'm getting another E, or... And then I got my another root note over here. So that's my C shape. And then I've got my root note over here. So I create my A shape, or my A shape like that. And then my G shape. Root notes on the to start the G chord. Very easy. So that's pretty much how we're going to use the CAGED. And it's not like... I'm going through it quite fast, mainly because I want to kind of condense the video as short as possible, because this is like a really massive concept to jump into, especially if you're not familiar with it. It took me a while to get a grasp of. So like, just come back to this video whenever like it's not making sense, or just take one little bit out of it and be like, oh, maybe I'm going to think about adding my E shape, or I'm going to add my A shape today. Or, you know, just like start thinking about songs that you're playing and where you can start recognizing where these triads are by navigating your open chord knowledge. So the first step is going to be towards you memorizing what the chord frameworks are. And when I mean by chord frameworks are, all chords are built on a series of what we call triads. And if you've gone through the basic theory course, you'll understand this really, really easy. But basically, they consist of root, third, fifth. And that is what we're going to be working on with this. We just want to know our root, third, fifth. If you know your root, third, and fifth, your third can be pivoted within a semitone to understand whether it is major or minor, or it's suspended, or it's going to have like a, you know, like an attention towards like a 9. Your 5, if you know where the root or where the fifth is, you can navigate towards the 6th quite easily. If you know where the root note is, you can navigate 7s quite easily. So these all kind of like stack on top of the basic knowledge that you'll have. And so it's really, really amazing once you like really get it. Especially like when you're improvising. Like for me, it's been like game changing in my guitar solos. So let's just start working through each open chord and the only chord tones that I really want you to understand that are being used. So let's just start going through the alphabet. So C is our first open chord that we're going to work on. Now, I want you to get used to just, I mean, you can do however you like. I will just do it in the normal position, and then you guys can see how you feel if you want to jump into movable shapes. So basically, starting from the A string, we're going to start our C chord, and I'm not going to tell you what the notes of the chord are, because the notes of the chord, especially on guitar, are pretty not important. Like, I don't need you to recall like the note letter names. I need you to understand what the number, or like what is its relation to the root note. Is it a third? Is it a fifth? Or is it the root note? Me personally, I find very, very little application to recalling actual note names. As long as you know where the root notes are, that's kind of like all you really need to know. If you are in like a jazz conservatorium and things like that, then maybe even then the numbers will serve you even faster. It'll make you a lot faster rather than having to figure out where all the note letter names are. So don't stress about the note letter names. Just stress about its relationship to the chord that you're playing and where the root note is. So recap on a root note. That is the main note, the starting note of a chord. So we've got a C chord here, and we're going to start on the root note, which is on the A string. So it goes root, third, fifth, root, third. So we got 1, 3, 5, 1, 3. That is the framework of a C chord. So 1, 3, 5, 1, 3. Easy. Now we're going to move over to the next chord, which is going to be the A. Now this one, you don't really need to stress about the high E string, because when you're moving through the fretboard, I mean, I personally don't really accent that one quite often unless I'm doing like upper triad stuff. Anyway, well, I'll give you the full workup if you want. So we're going to start with our first note, which is on the open A string, which will be root, fifth, root, third, fifth. So 1, 5, 1, 3, 5. So make sure you memorize that. It can be tricky because you're going 1, 5, 1. You're missing 3, and then you have 3, then you have 5. So 1, 5, 1, 3, 5. That is it. That one is super simple, but it definitely traps students like all the time. So remember, A chord will trip you up. Okay, so the next one is G. G is going to be a lot more simple, just like our C chord, which is great. So we're going to go start on the low E string with our first note on the G. So we're going to go root, third, fifth, root, third, root. So you can do that. So you're going to go root, third, fifth, root, third, root. So we don't have an extra fifth. You can add the fifth if you want to. Sometimes I like to do this. I like to play my G chords like this. So then I add my third finger on the B string. So we got root, third, fifth, root, fifth, root. It's a more fat sounding chord. And allows you to like do some really cool CG things. Anyway, that's the framework for the G chord that you can use. And now we're going to move over to E. Now E, this is like bread and butter. Like the E chord shape is, do not sleep on this one, because this is what if you've learned bar chords, this is what all your bar chords are built on. For majority of beginners to intermediate players, the E and the A, they will trip you up the most because they're not very linear on the way the chord structure is done. It's not like root, third, fifth, which trips everyone up. But they're the most basic and easiest ones to apply to any song that you're doing. So it's really, really cool. So we got E, which is going to go root, fifth, root, third, fifth, root. So we got 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1. Really, really simple. So that's the E chord. And then the last one is the D chord. I typically will look at the D chord with just the top 3 strings, anchoring on my root note over here. But for the sake of this video, I will give you, because this is a really awkward chord to be playing like you saw me do it before. It's quite tricky to get that whole shape up there for the E, but I just use it as just a small triad shape. It's really, really handy. Very, very cool. But anyway, I'll give you the full D chord framework. So we're going to start here with the root note on the D string. So we got root, fifth, root, third. So 1, 5, 1, 3. 1, 5, 1, 3. And sometimes you will see really, really clever ways. This is a banger of a chord to use in walking, like using as like a walking bass line. But you can throw that third up here on the low E string, and then that can create like a first inversion chord, which is really, really cool. So that's a little bit nerdy, but for anyone who is a bit more experienced, that is something to use. So basically, we just want to memorize those frameworks. Go back to this video, rewatch it. Do it as like a little bit of an exercise. I'm not a fan of everyone jumping in, just being like, I'm going to rehearse these things over and over. Just do them to get a little bit familiar with it. And then go to a song that you do play open chords with. You can either just do it with a capo and then play the open chords or whatever it is. And then just have a look at the chords you're playing and be like, that's a root 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. Yeah, cool. I'm playing a C chord, run 3, 5. Nice. Oh, that's a D chord. I know that the root note's over here. And like, do it that way. Do it in a really healthy way where you're applying it to music. So that's like the first step. When you're going into memorizing it, just look at the songs you already know how to play and then start seeing how you can apply these open chords. Do a little bit of memorization. When I say a little bit, like 5-10 minutes each day is going to get you faster and faster. Once you have memorized these chord structures, you're done. Forever. There is nothing more. Like, done. Finished. Every song, every key, nothing will ever change. You will always have these frameworks. It is that stupidly simple that once you know it, you're done. You just move on with life and you're like, sweet, I now have this epic memorization done, and I can pretty much, you can reverse engineer every single chord from those frameworks. Every major, minor, diminished, blah, blah, blah chord that exists can come from those frameworks. And so the second you know them, you are absolutely destroying fretboard knowledge, which is so cool. So just chip away at it. Don't expect to memorize it right away, but when you do memorize it, oh my God, does it make life the most simplest thing in the world. So the first application that I would recommend that you do when you are approaching this is going to come down to finding chord progressions that you already play and then start searching for root notes. Now, I have a video on how to memorize all the root notes, but I'm going to quickly, like all the notes on the guitar. This is going to make it life really simple. But basically, if you know, I'm just going to do the crash course because I do have a video and I can link it for you guys. And I don't know, I'll figure out how to do the pop-up stuff on YouTube. I'm new to editing. So you just need to know where root notes are, and then you can build your open chords around it. So this is the second step to applying the CAGED system. So basically, if I know all my root notes on my low E and low A string, that means I can play an octave, and then I know all the notes on my D and G string because they're the same. And then all the notes on my B string are the same as my A string, like this. So you just go 2 frets down and then 3 strings down. And then E and E are the same. So that's the quick crash course on how to memorize the fretboard really fast. But when I'm navigating the fretboard and I'm like, hey, I'm going to play, you know, some chord progression. So I'm going to play an A flat chord, E flat chord, F minor chord to a D flat chord. And then that will make it so you can't use an open chord. Ha! All right. So basically with this chord shape here, I'm immediately, I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm using my E chord shape. So if you see, remember here, woo, banger, straight away, E chord is just up here. My root note's on the A flat, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to build a bar chord. So I go root note A flat, and then I go E shape. Bam. Now the next chord is going to be an E flat, and I'm like, okay, well, where's my E flats at? I can't do this one over here because my open note is E. So the earliest E flat I've got is right here. So now what I can do is I have 2 options with that root note. I can either play the A shape. So you see this A shape that we had here, this open A chord. Or I could play open C chord shape. So I got my C chord, slide it up to the root note E flat. Bam. Easy. Now the next one, like those are cool 2 options that I have there. So I've got my E shape and then A shape using to get the E flat, or I could do this. And then the next chord is going to be an F minor chord. So it's a minor chord, so I have to swap the third of it to make it a minor sound. I have to flatten it. So at this point with the F chord, I have multiple choices here because I have this F here, which is going to open up my A shape. So I'm going to play an A chord here, A minor, right? And then I'm just going to slide it up. I got my A minor shape now, and that's my F minor chord. I wouldn't really like to do this chord shape because it's not really my vibe. I'm not much of this vibe. It's a bit tricky, especially when you're trying to sing a song. I try to make life simple. So that the C shape is eliminated from my list of jamages. But A is a strong contender, and then the other one is the E shape. So I could use my E shape, slide it up 1 fret, and then just take my middle finger off, and that's me dropping the 3rd. I got my F minor. And then my last chord's a D flat. And so here I'm like, okay, well, I come down to the exact same problem that I had with the E flat. So I can either do the A shape or I could do the C shape. Now my choices over what open shape to use will completely determine the sound of my vibe. Like it'll completely determine whether the harmony's jumping or it's being voice led or it's like I'm connecting more with the chords. These are choices that you can make. So very beginner players are going to do things like they're going to play the chord. And you can feel it. It's just a jump, 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 jump. So they're kind of like jumping around. So now what I can do if I want to, I could do, this is me trying to voice lead it as best as I can. So if I use the E shape here, and then I use the C shape here, and then I use the E minor shape, F sharp, you can see how these connect a little bit better. So I've got, so I felt that for me personally, if I'm playing solo acoustic, it sounds nice if I just obviously start here on my E shape. And then this, the C shape, when I go to play the E flat chord, which is the 5th chord, it's really close. So here you can see I'm not doing a lot of movement here. So it keeps, when you keep the chord tones close to each other, we call it voice leading. So there'll be the smallest amount of friction and distance between chord tones, and it sounds very, very good. That's why when you're playing open progressions with a capo, it just sounds so nice and clean and wholesome. That's what happens. That's essentially what we're trying to duplicate, but without having to use a capo. So that is my decision between that one. And then when I go to the F minor chord, I like it down here. It fattens up the chord. Now I have 2 choices here. I can either connect to the F minor chord more by playing this shape. You see how that one is voice led quite cleanly there? Or I jump up here and then that chord connects more with this chord. So you can see it's completely personal preference, but just because I understand my open chord shapes, I'm able to apply it to that, and then I can immediately like jump in and have heaps of fun. So that is like the second step. You're finding the root notes of what you're aiming for, and then you're going to pick which open chord that you want to share over the top of that. Now, in case you were wondering, that is what like all your bar chords are built on. So like all your bar chords are completely built on this concept of movable chords. So you've got your open chords, and then you can just move them up the fretboard. So you got E shape, boom, 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 boom. You got your C shape, move it up. You got your D shape like this. We got our A shape. So I use it like this. I like to use my pinky. Now, when we're moving on to this next step, it's going to be about mastering these chords and then using the CAGED system to navigate our knowledge of chord tones. So once you know where the root, third, fifth are, we can start doing really experimental things. I mean, this isn't like it's not rocket science. You've probably played these progressions before, but being able to understand exactly what's going on for you is going to really give you a lot of power in the progressions that you're playing. So what I like to do is I like to know these frameworks again. Like I said, we know root, fifth, root, third, fifth, root. Now, if that's my bar chord shape, I can move that anywhere on the fretboard. And like, say for instance, I'm playing a G bar chord like this. If I need to play G minor, I just take my third and I flatten it by a half step. Now I've got my G minor. And I know that that works because I know that that shape exists everywhere. And so if I want to move that anywhere on the fretboard, say it's a B, now it's a B minor. Same thing can go for 7 chords. So this is where we're starting to evolve into like, you know, tensions and things like that. So say I'm playing a G again, G major chord, and I want to play a G dominant 7. So that's 1, 3, 5, flat 7. Well, I know where I have to make a decision on where there's a root note. And I know there's 3 root notes here, 1, 1. Those are all my root notes in the E shape. So I can be very simple. I can be like, well, I want to keep the bass one there. That sounds good. Well, I'm going to pick my pinky, rip that off, and then bam, I've got my dominant 7 chord. And that's how you get your bluesy sound. Now the same thing goes with the A shape, for instance. So I get my A shape, you know, root 5, root 3. So say I move it up to the C, like I move into my position, we'll do it like D flat, because I don't want you guys to sneak in and use different open chords when we want to use these movable shapes. So say I'm on this D flat major chord right now. So I got root 5, root 3, and now what I want to do is make it a D flat minor chord. So I'm going to get that 3 and drop it down a half step. So I got root 5, root flat 3. Now what if I wanted to make this D flat minor chord into D flat minor 7? I do the same thing I did before. So I've got my root notes here. So I'm just going to keep the bass root note because that's nice to keep the bass on the bottom. It keeps it really solid, especially if you're playing on your own. And then all you do is you lift your pinky, boom. So I know I've got to go from a 1 down to a flat 7. So I go bam, bam, bam. And then I got my minor 7 chord. So that's where mastering of the CAGED system is going to completely level up your playing. So quick recap. This is a really, really simple and easier system to jump into. The only thing I would say is take your time. Take bite-sized chunks out of this, because you're basically like this video is condensing like months of theory, knowledge, and practice into like a 20-something minute video. And it's like, actually we're a bit longer now, but it's designed to make your life as easy as possible and not have to do years of like memorization and learning all these different like chord shapes and blah, 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 and memorizing chords. This is to help you start mapping the fretboard in a really healthy way using knowledge you already know. And if you just dive that little bit deeper into your open chords, knowing how they are built, it changed my life and my playing. And I make this content for you guys because I want you to not have to do what I did. I don't want you guys to have to go through the process of like, you know, you've had a long day or whatever, like, because not a lot of people are professional musicians, and even professional musicians don't really want to do this like technical practice. So like, I don't want you guys to spend, 30 minutes of like the hour that you have available to play music, and all you're doing is like exercises and arpeggios and triad practice. Like, that's so not what music is about. Music is about playing music and playing songs and picking up skills that you like and then enjoying yourself. So that's why I want you to try and really get this, because it's going to mean that you don't need to practice arpeggios. You don't need to practice triads. You just need to know where a root note is, and you're like, sweet, I've got 5 options. Once I know where a root note is, I can just build my chord like that. Bam. And so this is like the beginner, easy guide, jump in, have fun. I know it got a bit more complicated towards the end, but that's all you need to do. Have fun with it. Let me know in the comments if this helped you. As we improve, we'll make it more concise. And like, if this is more catered to just do it in like you want like a couple of bite-sized videos, I could totally do that for you guys as well. Just give me the feedback. I just wanted to get this out there right away because a lot of students in our community, in our online music school, they are jumping into this, and this really would blow up their practice and it would really help their guitar playing. So I needed to get this out here as fast as possible. And so this is it. Now, have fun, enjoy yourselves. I will have an improvisation version of this very soon as well, because once you know the CAGED system and you get familiar with it, when you're improvising, for anyone who plays guitar solos and stuff, the CAGED system is like, it is amazing. It is the most incredible thing when you're improvising, and it will make you sound so much smarter than you are. It makes people want to play with you. It makes people enjoy your guitar solos. It is huge. And then if you're a songwriter, it is also like freakishly amazing, because you're going to be able to pick up melodies and start writing melodies that connect to chord tones, and you'll know where they are, and then you can reference them for yourself. It's a huge superpower. So have fun with this. Give me your feedback, and I hope you guys absolutely crush it. And I will see you guys in the next video. Let's go.